Good day, my viewers. My name is Dr. Alex British Chinedu Tasie from Ikwereland, Nigeria, West Africa. And by the grace of God, I am a writer, a musician, a filmmaker, a football coach, a historian, and a multi-dimensional thinker. Generally, people nickname and dub me a professor in native intelligence. This program is titled The Reality. The Reality is a program that I have designed, created, and enunciated to objectively and scholarly treat and discuss some fascinating, some exciting issues and topics of life. Some of the issues of life, topics of life that we find interesting, that we want to know about, I bring them to public space so that together we can all look at them, examine them, analyze them, appraise them, and see how we can make meanings out of them. That is the essence of this program, the reality. And of course, the reality is a knowledge-based program, an academic-based program, an enlightenment-based program, an education-based program. The topic that I have here to talk about is the African beliefs in the existence of God. The African beliefs in the existence of God. So the emphasis of this study is to see what African people say and know about the existence of God. Whether God exists or he does not. Generally in Africa, across culture, the people of Africa accede to the fact that the world we live in, our universe, did not emerge by chance. It did not come by accident. That the world we live in is a world that is well created, a world well thought out, a world well planned. They agree that our world is a world of wonder. African people agree and believe that the world we live in has an owner, and the owner of the world is the creator of the world. African people agree that the world we live in is an original world and that there is nothing fake, about it, nothing artificial about our world. And they agree that the creator and the maker of the world is original. In Africa, they are transfixed, astounded, amazed, confounded, baffled, surprised at the things that God has created. They look at this world and they become so transfixed with the things they see, and they agree that all these things they see did not come by accident, that they are all created by a supernatural being who has the powers to create and to make things. And they agree that our world is created by one being, one supernatural figurehead, one supernatural being, and not by other beings, but just one being. In Africa, they believe that the God who made all the things they see is awesome. He's a God of wonder, a God of creativity, a natural thinker. And so they ascribe all kinds and sorts of qualities to him. They give him all kinds of credits. They believe that he is really awesome. He is really magnificent. He is the owner of this world. That is what African people generally believe. In Africa, the people are pantheists. Generally in Africa, African people are pantheists. Pantheism is a belief that God is there, that God exists, that God lives in nature. That you cannot see God with your naked eyes. You cannot get to where He lives, but He does exist. He lives. You can only see God in nature, in the things that He has created. They believe that God exists. They believe that God cannot be encumbered, cannot be limited, cannot be hampered by any force, either human or spiritual. They agree that He traverses the corners of the earth and that His presence can be felt over and around our world. So He is a God that cannot have any limits. He is limitless. He is boundless in nature. He is a God that cannot be controlled by any human and by any other spirits. In fact, He owns everything, both spiritual and physical. That is what the African believes. So they are pantheists. They look at the moon. In the night, it gives light. In the day, the sun is there. They look at the stars that dot our heavens and beautify our heavens. They look at the waters, the rivers, the streams, the oceans, and all that. They look at the animals in the field. There are different colors, different species. They look at the birds that fly. They look at human beings in their different categories and species. They look at nature. They look at the vegetation. They look at the mountains. They look at the things that are inside the ground. They look at the air that we breathe in. They look at everything, and they agree that all these things did not come by accident. That there must be a maker, a creator that divinely made everything. And that's what they believe. And so, across culture, the creator of this world is given so many names. Like in my own native name in Ikwere land, we call him Chokike, which means God of creation. The Yorubas in Nigeria, for example, call him Olorun. The Hebrews call him Jehovah. The English people call him God. And so, many other ethnic groups in the world have different names for God. So in Africa, the people of Africa believe that God exists and that He is the owner of this world. And so they are pantheists. In nature, they feel the presence of God. In nature, they see the face of God. They see the picture of God. And that is originality. And that is creativity. And that is natural thinking. That is how they see God. That is what they talk about God. Africans are not atheists. Atheism is non-belief in God. It's a belief that God does not exist. That the world emerged from one form or the other that the believers can explain. But in Africa, we agree that God does exist and that He is the maker and the owner of the whole world. Atheism is associated with the people of the Western world. They are philosophers because of superciliousness, haughtiness and brag, ignorance, short-sightedness. They say there is no God. But in Africa, we say there is God. People like John Locke, the English philosopher, the French philosopher Voltaire, and so many others. The English scientist Charles Darwin is an example. The physicist said there is no God. And so many people today in Europe, in the Western world, say there is no God. But in Africa, we believe generously, vehemently, strongly that God exists and God is there. That is what the African believes. That is what the African thinks about the existence of God. It is true that God has no history. Nobody can trace his beginning. And that makes him more awesome. That baffles people more. A being that has no beginning, that has no background, that people can investigate about him, is the one responsible for the whole things that we see. That is not ordinary. God is great. So the African acknowledges these facts and agree that God is great. It is not true that the white people are the people that introduced God to Africa. That upon their coming, the knowledge of God came to Africa. That is erroneous. Before the white people came to Africa, African people have had contacts, had relationship with God. God has revealed himself to them. In the past, he had revealed himself to them, and he is revealing himself to African people presently. In every generation, God reveals himself to the people of Africa because they believe strongly that he does exist. That is what African people believe. They are not atheists. They are pantheists. They agree that God is there, and the things that he has made speak volumes of his magnificence, of his powers, of his image, of his abilities. He is indeed a God of creativity, a God of thinking. That is what the African generally believes. My name is Dr. Alex British Chinedu Tasie. In case you want to assist me, you like what I do, like the topics that I present, you want to assist me financially, you want to buy me data to upload the things I do, I will appreciate all that. And the account detail is Access Bank 40551714 with the name Alex British Tasie. In case you want to place an advert here, or you want to feature on this program, you have something to share with people, with the world. There's something you want to tell people that you do. You want to advertise one product or the other, what you do using this platform, you are welcome. You want to engage me in a seminar, in a discussion, in a symposium, I am available and you are welcome. And the contact is +234 806 369 3609. WhatsApp +234 806 369 3609. So in Africa, the people believe strongly that God is there, that God exists, and that He is the owner of everything. Where we have a contrast with Western theory concerning the existence of God and African indigenous theory concerning the existence of God is the right channel and the intermediary to reach God. While Westerners say that it is only through Jesus Christ that He is the only one you can go through to reach God, African people believe that with the gods around them, with the deities around them, they can reach God. That is the difference. In Africa, they believe in a pantheon of gods. They believe in the multiplicity of gods. But they don't agree. They don't believe that the gods they believe in, the gods that are around them, are of the same capacity, the same standard, the same level with God Almighty. They don't. They set God above every other God. Since they cannot see God with their naked eyes, they cannot reach His abode. They don't know where He lives. In their wonder, they relied on the small gods around them to help them reach God, to help them meet God. That was the genesis in the belief, in the worship of a pantheon of gods in Africa. Their inability to reach God, to present their requests to God, to give their complaints to God, to present their messages to God, abstractly made it difficult for them to comprehend the full how God exists. So they rely on the small gods around them, on the deities around them, to help them reach God. It is not true that African people do not believe in God Almighty, the sole creator of the universe, but only believe in small gods. No. These small ones that are around them are the ones they can reach, they can meet, they can commune with, they can relate with, because they are around them. And they implore these small gods to help them reach God Almighty. That brought about the multiplicity of gods in Africa. Of course, the gods are there. God created them, brought them down into this world, and gave them possessions. That is why they are found at different locations in the world. And they manifest their powers. They show their images, their qualities, their capabilities. So human beings see these gods as powerful. They respect them, they worship them, they give them homage, they give them respect and regard. They pay their obeisance to these gods because they are around them. But as to believe in God Almighty, they do. White people are the people who believe that God does not exist. Yes, they came with religion, Christianity, and all that to tell us about God. But before their coming, we had knowledge about God. We had related with God. We had been communing with God. So they did not come with the knowledge of God. That was why in the past, when a child was born, when a child was brought newly into the world, the parents of that child presented that child to God by lifting that child upward. They look up and they thank God. During warfare, they thanked God. They implored His protection, His guidance. During harvest, they implored Him to assist them, have a bounty harvest, a hitch-free farming season. They did all that. In Africa, before relating, before communicating with the lesser gods, with the small gods around them, first thing they do is to tell God Almighty, thank you. They give that cognizance, they give that recognition that God is overall, that He is in charge of the affairs of this world. That is what it means in Africa. The small gods around them play their roles because they are around. They manifest their powers. They show their images. They show their qualities. Not that they are easily pleased. No. Not that they are gullible. No. But they agree that these gods are created by God Himself. That He brought them into this world to help mankind. That is what they believe. It is not a matter of fear. No, they are not coerced to worship those gods by those gods themselves. No. They believe that the God Almighty, the creator of everything, brought down these gods into the world to assist mankind. So they related with those gods. They communicated with those gods. And they implored those gods to take their messages, their requests, their desires, their wants, their complaints to God Almighty. And that is how it is. In my place, before we begin the annual farming season, we say, Chokike bikomeka ishinayaka ma ahwa ka bụrụ ọma gwepụna anyị nsogbu ka ezi iche iche, which is translated, God Almighty, thank you. Help us and remove every glitches, every problem that will come our way as we begin this farming season. Then now we come down to the Mother Earth. We call Ali and offer our sacrifice. We tell God Almighty that we are communing with this Spirit because He sent this Spirit to come to this world. We cannot see God to know His mind. He knows how He created His world. He knows how all these gods, small gods, came into this world. Only God knows. So human beings in Africa agree that these gods should not be despised. They should be encouraged to live with human beings, coexist with human beings harmoniously, because they have what to do to help mankind. That is what they believe. So it is not true that white people brought the knowledge of God to African people. Before they came to Africa, in the 15th century, principally, African people had had contacts with God Almighty. He was the one that helped them in their wars, during farming season, during their celebrations, festivals, and all that. He protected them. The white people were not the people that protected African people in those days. When they came, they did not meet Africa as an empty place. People flourished. People lived. People existed in Africa. Who took care of them, if not God? So Africans generally agree, accede to the fact that the world we live in has a maker, that human beings are also part of the creations of God, that He is our owner, and they agree that God exists. They worship God in the manners they know. They give the best of their offerings, their farm produce, to God. After harvest, They took the best of their produce and they offered to God as a sacrifice. Some of them also give alms to fellow human beings as a way of telling God thank you. Because charity is one of the cardinal, reasons why African people believe that life is important. So they help one another. They learn that from God. That is Africa for you. African people are people who acknowledge that there is a maker who soundly made our world, who created everything in style and perfectly designed our world. So they worship him in the manners they know, in the ways they know. The white people have come to tell us that to worship God, in their own way. The African story, the African experience is that God exists, that he is great. He is the owner of the world. He is the engineer of this world. They are not atheists, they are pantheists. They believe in God with all their heart. That is who they are. Thank you.